Chapter 38 God as Father. If God is the mother of the universe, then the creation is of the same substance as her. It is of her, as the child is of the mother's substance. And this means that the whole creation is divine and divinely related. We should have imagined life as created in the birth pain of God the Mother. Then we would understand that, we would know that our life's rhythm beats from her great torn with agony of love and birth. Then we should understand why we, her children, have inherited pain, and we would feel that death meant a reunion with her, a passing back into her substance, the blood of her blood again, peace of her peace. Human females and males are not equal genetic parents. The female X chromosome is 3 to 4 times longer than the male Y chromosome. It carries the overwhelming preponderance of critical genetic information and unrelated to sex needed to create a human being. Further, while only half the population has a Y chromosome, all of us, female and male, contain an X. It is our primary genetic bond as a species. The female egg, even before it mates with the sperm, generates an electrical field that becomes the shaping energy of the embryo as it develops into an independent being. The mother field is both the biological environment and the sharper form within the environment. These biological facts are also experienced as spiritual facts. But when the cult of the male god was established, there must have been difficulty in explaining how he could be the giver of life to all creation, since the man, unlike the woman, cannot produce from his body either the child or the food for the child. The whole attitude of humans towards the god had to be altered, violently altered. There could not be the same vital, biological, and magical link, the I-thou, between the child and the father, as there is between the child and its mother. Two beings evolving in and from the same body, the same rhythms, the same dreams. From the religious point of view, this means the loss between the human and the divine of direct, continuous, physical, emotional, spiritual relationship. Oneness is dualized. The self is isolated within, and the rest of the universe, including God, is displaced and objectified without. The evolutionary protoplasmic connection between the experienced self and the all is broken, and the new relation becomes I, the other, or worse, I, it. The Father is not of the same all-containing, all-infusing, shaping, and nourishing substance. And so, the relation between humans and the Father God becomes abstract and alienated, distant and moralistic. The abstract God is inorganic, equally inorganic relative to the preceding 300,000 and 500,000 years of communal Stone Age life, was the rigid class system of royal masters served by slave labor that quickly coalesced around the ruling patriarchal elite. The few can rule the many only with the help of punitive religious ideologies, by means of which the unjust advantage of the few and the raw exploitation of the many are somehow justified by God by a class theology. And so, this new male God must be enforced on the people by the punitive and guilt-projecting ideologies of a privileged priesthood. In their writings and doctrines flooding the Bronze Age, creation now comes to be seen as evil. The Creator is above and apart from his creation, and while he is perfect, the world is flawed. And so, the idea of the original sin can be conceived for the first time to rationalize the unnatural new relation between the human soul and the aloof God. This lays the basis for all further alienated relationships between people and God, between people and people, between people and the natural world, between rulers and ruled. For now, the primary relation is not that we share the same divine substance, but that we share the same material corruption, and the entire priesthood exists to redeem us from sin of being born from the mother, and to rationalize class disparity by preaching that the new class system is God's design, his method for creating civilized order out of the corruption and chaos of human flesh. For the unjust system to work for any prolonged period of time, it is necessary that the masses of people believe they deserve the injustice. This is why the Father's way in all patriarchal world religions is absolute. So pure, it is separable from us in the world, that perceptible only through largely verbal abstractions that attempt to describe his emanations or manifested attributes. He is perfect, good, and disembodied spirit, the Logos. He is seen as purely spiritual generation, totally freed from matter, because the priest must insist he is free from the Great Mother, and having no participation in material processes. If then becomes difficult to explain the existence of God, illness, pain, and decay, since they have nothing to do with God, rather it becomes too easy to explain to them. Everything is blamed on the corrupt mother and her human children, and her heathenish lover, the devil. It now becomes possible for the Hindu mystic to confuse the goddess as time, Maya, with the evil on the one hand, and with the whole natural universe on the other, so making all creation the product of evil, while God remains uninvolved. Under ontological dualism, the mind becomes more and more confused by paradox, and to work their way out of the confusion, patriarchal theologians seek abstract escape from the natural world, defined as a seductive trap. The world of Maya is called mere illusion, a veil hiding true being. And so the Hindu, the Buddhist, and the Christian seek liberation from nature in search of a state of consciousness, but bereft of all sense experience, nirvana or angelic heaven. It was to correct this amaterial floatiness, in fact, that Zen developed out of ancient Taoism to re-insist on the reality of the real. Alan Watts, in Nature, Man, and Woman, describes the ancient female way of fusing spirit and matter in non-coercive union, a way of flowing along with events, while at the same time cooperatively molding them. It is the way of the dance and the unfolding of the plant, animal, and mineral forms, the desire of energy to form itself according to its own rhythms. At some historic point, in an aggressive act of self-definition, the male mind interpreted this energy, the organic will, as other, and mentally separated himself from it. It became Maya, illusion, evil, mere matter, inferior object. Denying and fighting it, man tries to artificially or ideologically impose his own contrary ego will. In the process, he destroys nature, and thereby, for he too is nature himself. And Taoism says, Tao, there is a thing confusedly formed, warned from heaven and earth. Silent and void, it stands alone and does not change, goes round and does not weary. It is capable of being the mother of the world. I know not its name, so I style it the way. I give it the makeshift name of the great. Being great, it is further described as receding. Receding, it is described as far away. Being far away, it is turning back. Tao is that from which one cannot for a single minute depart. That from which one may depart is not Tao. As the Father God is seen as entirely good, light, and static, like the sun at noon, the Hebrews and Christians had to invent the devil. In the Bible, the Old Testament Hebrews refer to Satan, which means enemy. An enemy of the Hebrews or the Hebrew God was satanic. Early Christians, who were mostly Hebrew and inheritors of the Hebrew tradition, expanded on this quasi-political definition of embodied evil until the devil became the source of all things called evil, of decay, darkness, illness, pain, and death. The Jewish Essenes, who were evolving Christian concepts 100 years at least before the reputed birth of Christ, also took in many Persian, Zoroastrian concepts of good versus evil as the cosmic battle between light and dark, between the children of light, the children of darkness. And so, an extremely dualistic light versus evil, dark ontology was incorporated as the rational framework of Christianity. With an aloof, cloud dwelling God representing all that is good and light, while a very busy, world-hugging devil represents all the bad, dark stuff. Once Christians had invented this monster, they became totally obsessed with this invention of theirs, fanatically obsessed, since the devil is the curse of all those who have abandoned the goddess, and fanaticism is a mental curse. So now the devil is projected on half the world as the other by the crazy half that considers itself good. Islam inherited the same biblical tendency towards dualism and the devil projection and has historically elaborated on it also. Under these religious systems, half of life is seen as the enemy of life and is no longer experienced as an inherent and organic part of the life process. In patriarchy, the matter character of the symbol materia is devalued. Matter is no longer revered as the foundation substance of the world of growth and experience. Matter is no longer intuited as the evolutionary phenomenon, as a form of spirit energy, as the potentia of consciousness. Matter is now the stupid dark female, despised as something inferior value in contrast with the male ideal. In Muslim and Christian doctrine, matter has become inert, wholly negative, demonized, and hostile to spirit. It is the female world, as opposed to the divine spirit heaven, that males are born to inherit. With the Industrial Revolution, however, and the rise of science as the dominant patriarchal religion or mind technology, an ironic crossover occurred. Without canceling out the earlier negative associations, materialism becomes the dominant and manly ideology, while spirituality is consigned to an increasingly ethereal, irrelevant, and peripheral space of being, the afterworld or feminine vapors. But still, matter is viewed as dumb and inert. Materialism does not glory in matter, but in the male's ability to manipulate it. The new materialism is machine worship and the product worship, not the vital and ecstatic celebration of spirit matter that characterize the goddess religion. The current thrust of materialism is the escape of the Earth's orbit, to flee the knowledge and the problems of our messy, bloody, hungry, and waste-producing bodily origins, to dwell on the wholly sterile and man-made stations, stasis, static, in space, where the astronaut, the modern priest, and the technophallic religion realizes his ancient dream, to utterly escape the earthly processes the rest of us remain wallowing in. In the patriarchal heaven of the Hebrew Kabbalah, the world tree lost its paradox. It began to be pictured as one-sided, with its roots above in the sky only. The earth side of the process of life, of illumination, is utterly negated. Not there. Interestingly enough, according to the Mircea Eliade in his study of shamanism, modern-day male shamans worldwide rarely undertake the journey to the underworld, common in old times. They have come to fear and avoid the realms of the living dead, of magic darkness, and necessary worms as the domain of the Dark Mother. They eschew it. Instead, they consecrate on the journey to the sky, which involves considerable prestige for the shaman, being a trip into the home of the celestial patriarch, the big clean father in the sky. Anti-earth, anti-natural symbolism is distinctly related to religious dualism. From it arises a purely abstract worldview, as in the mathematics, in which the man-made symbols are not comprehended as part of a larger reality. They are comprehended as the reality. Dualism is a spectator sport. No one wholly involved in an ongoing life process can conceive of it in dualistic terms or objectify the experience. Dualism first arose among men who were functional spectators of the life created by women. These were the male priesthoods, men who did not give birth to creatures who would experience both ecstasy and pain, and who would die. Men whose whole life appointed task was the uninvolved organization and manipulation of life in abstract and systematic terms for the sake of secular control and power. Male priesthoods are not characterized by their dogmatic attempts to control a process they do not themselves, as spectators, participate in. Such mechanical, anti-natural, remote control concepts of life have choked the springs of the living waters. The patriarchal, Kabbalistic world tree with roots exclusively in the sky is wholly cerebral and unreal. To erase the earth side of the spiritual equation, is to de-energize the equation. To deny the earth roots of the world tree is to deny the serpent roots of the spine. And indeed, the biblical Hebrews set themselves against the serpent. In doing so, they were deliberately opposing the Kundalini powers of the spine, the sex chakra, and the ancient brainstem. And so the Father God becomes both anti-sexual and anti-evolutionary. This is our grotesque situation today. An anti-sexual God is now worshipped as the creator of life. And wherever you find a puritanical God, you find also a pornographic God. For the human mind will strive for balance. And an anti-evolutionary God is now worshipped as the goal of the human progress, to be achieved not by organic growth of consciousness, but by worship of developmental machine programs and technologies. The immortality promised by the moon goddess was not a state of perfection or stasis in eternal light. She offers an ever-renewed life like the moon's own, in which diminishing and dying are essential to spirit growth as birth and becoming. Her redemption is not from sin and matter, but from mental traps that block the self from its source. It is union of the opposites within the psyche that brings release from the final power of death, which allows consciousness to pulsate from one dimension to another in the cosmic field. This is the only redeeming experience, to be lived by an inner presence, the creator behind the ego.